Hi, this is Mary Firm with ReachForce, and I would like to welcome all of you to our webinar today entitled A 400% Lift in Leads, Yes Please, with Chris Goward of Wider Funnel. I've opened a poll just to kind of get a sense of where everybody's at in their use of marketing automation, for example. A lot of us do use it, a lot of us don't. So it just helps me to understand where y'all are coming from. So I'm going to close the poll and just jump into our presentation. I wanted to frame the conversation about marketing automation by talking about how important those interactions on our web pages are and those visits to forums. So as we go to the next slide, we're going to just sort of touch on some findings that we've had at ReachForce, where we've been looking at the importance of what happens with the buyer journey now. So, we used to have a completely different process of selling our products and services in the B2B marketplace to our buyers. It was very outbound awareness building, branding, advertising in magazines. That's obviously flipped. And the biggest sea change, I think, for all of us is that the buyers control the dialogue and the path and the investigation. And what we'll see from Lori Wisdow is that in her research from Forrester, she published something which really informed a lot of how I think about this problem on the next slide. And what she let us know is that buyers are almost ready to purchase by the time they get to reach out to you. So if you're attending, you're getting people to register for a webinar or download an interesting content asset, how important is that person? Is it just someone who's learning generically about an area that they want to expand their knowledge base, or is it someone who's deeper in a consideration? You may not know, and it might be a proxy that's doing the research. And so if we walk through the other slides, it's kind of represented by this image of this, who is this person? We all see, if we're looking at our web logs, that there are anonymous visitors. Google Analytics tells us nothing about who's on the website. And as we're trying to decide, how do we talk to this person? And we go to the next slide. One of the other pieces that Lori points out to us is that they're not going to talk to our salespeople until they might be at the point of looking for price quotes. So how do we as marketers interact with these prospects when we know so little about someone who's simply filled out a form to download a white paper or an ebook or a case study, or is attending a webinar? And what we're finding with customers is that the more we know, the more we can tailor those outbound dialogues. And so, and it's important to know in this instance, this is a real person. And what we see on the next slide is she's the CMO of Smart Bear Software, and she's former CMO at HubSpot. And we did not have an individual that we were nurturing specifically at Smart Bear, but once they reached out to us, we literally had a single demo and signed them as a customer. So they had already done enough research to identify the problem they were trying to solve and the way that they wanted to take their marketing. And they wanted to be able to have better engagement, and one of our solutions helped them to do it. And it actually has to do with landing pages. I was looking at our own analysis of opportunity influence, which is a module that we have in our marketing automation, and I saw exactly this same influence path with a new deal that we announced internally yesterday, where we had 3 different interactions with an anonymous visitor over a period of a couple of months. And then the first named interaction was at the point that they wanted to see a demo with our sales department. So this is certainly not an isolated incident. So if we go to the next slide, one of the findings that we found, that we discovered using, this is a kind of graphic representation of something we have here at ReachForce called Smart Forms, which is a data appending solution that integrates to any web page. So it can be a WordPress landing page, it can be your marketing automation page, whether Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, or any of the other ones. We're advancing way too fast here. Sometimes the mouse clicks just get ahead of us, I think. But on here you can see that the company, we can ask for the company and in your email address, but then the SmartForms data solution actually brings in all of this other information like the employee count, annual revenues, what industry this company is in, location, including a mailable zip code, postal code. And this allows marketers to take this information, use it for sales routing, use it to build out their segmentations. We internally, when we configure this for customers as part of implementation, we can set up transformations of, say, prepackaged software into a single category of, if you have 10 segments, put that in your technology category, for example. When we're dealing with a company like Samsung that has multiple locations and is a global company, our solution also includes hierarchical information that maps to the global headquarters or site location. It's highly configurable. And why that's important really is getting into the next slide, because Chris is going to go into some really neat detail about these incredible tests that he's been performing that you went too far. We have a single driver, and it's not me. I'm the backseat driver today. And so his information is really cool, because that kind of methodical testing and seeing those results always helps me as a marketer to learn a lot. And that's another thing that we've been able to discover with our clients. And this is an example. Think about 20 questions. If you have those landing page forms and you ask questions of your visitors to download something, you might, through the course of that nurture cycle, be asking like 20 questions. But our customer, we recently investigated this case study, and on average, his customers were filling out 2.5 forms, but it took 4 form completions to complete his profile. So we immediately realized that he didn't have that many chances. And so if you go to the next slide, what you see is you don't get 20 questions. What we realized is you actually get 10. And if the questions are the wrong questions, right? So, we go to the next slide and you'll see that all questions are not created equal. If you go up to a party and the first thing you say to somebody is, how much do you weigh? Or how old are you? You're probably not the most popular person at the party, and they're going to turn around and walk away, or make fun of you, whichever you hate more might be the answer. And we're not there for that experience of a web page visitor sitting there and seeing our questions. We can look at our abandonment rates. We can see that we've not had conversion on a certain page, and we'll get into some of the elements that Chris is going to go into in detail. But have we ever really pulled back and say, are we asking questions in a way that our customers, our prospects, want them to be asked, and are they the right questions? So when you don't have to say how much money do you make, which is what are your annual revenues, you might actually see a lift in page conversion simply because you didn't ask that specific question. You asked something different, like, is there going to be a super fabulous blowout Christmas party this year because your numbers were so awesome? And has that put you in the top 50 of the Fortune 100 as opposed to the top 100? So there's always, as we all know, a lot of elements to this, but for me, this was a huge finding that I shouldn't be thinking in terms of limitless questions or cutting questions on a specific form. I should be thinking of the life cycle of the questions within that buyer journey. And why is any of this important, and what does it do? If you can cut your questions, but you can expand your knowledge about a person at that first touch, these are some of the gains that we see, certainly precision sales routing, faster handling of leads, and you're going to be able to get access this slide deck afterwards, and we're going to have this available on demand as well. So don't feel like you have to study this. But we go to the next slide. We've actually plotted this into a calculator, and this is specifically looking at sort of the average typical types of gains that we've seen. And this is just a static image of one example, but we can also do that. We can configure this to any individual company's situation. But say, for example, you're getting 1,200 leads per quarter on your website, and you're seeing about a 3% conversion from your overall visitors. So I put that at 40,000, which is obviously just a calculation. And we set the average deal size in this instance at $80,000 as, a very expensive, long sales cycle type of situation. And then map the differences. So if you're seeing a 34% increase in the number of leads collected per form because you were able to cut the number of fields or change the questions, there's going to be just a gross improvement in the quantity of leads collected. And then the rest of this is gains that are completely aligned with these cases over more than 100 clients. So 20% are going to convert to MQL instead of 15%, and say 30% are converting to SQL from the 22% previously. We haven't touched the deal size, which sometimes can be enhanced because we have better knowledge, better nurture. But the win percentage goes up because you got to it faster and nurtured it better. And all of these are completely adjustable. But using this as just kind of one example, instead of 5 deals per quarter, which, by the way, we're going to close, this is an example I calculated on Friday. This deal would have closed in the original example in the first quarter of next year. But in this new example, because we've reduced the sales cycle, which has been proven in the case and it's in the deck, now it's actually going to close in Q3. So that's a huge, 2 quarters faster. And the number of deals has increased. And obviously the profit has increased. We've added almost $1 million in revenue to the 1 quarter just based on better nurture, having more information, not having to ask too many questions and lose people in the process. And so I like stuff like this because I need to understand why I need to make the effort or the investment ahead of time to do something, or is this technique worth whatever time, effort, and organizational convincing is out there. So it's for me one way of looking at what you can do with landing pages beyond just those conversion elements, and what does it mean at the back end. So that's the data side of the B2B landing page. And now I'd like to get into the next slide is actually a funnel graphic that you can study in detail at your leisure later, because I really want to hear from Chris. So Chris Goward, I'm going to hand off to you and just do a quick intro, and then you can show your incredible stuff. So Chris works with clients doing incredible studies of landing page elements, conversions, and all types of marketing to help drive more leads that convert better. And he's a super methodical person. And I'm totally excited to introduce him. So Chris, I'm going to let you drive. And thank you so much for being here.
Great. Thanks, Mary. And hopefully the gremlins in our PowerPoint are settled down here. They seem to be a little aggressive there.
There are always gremlins when it comes to me. So just, I don't know why, but go ahead. I can't wait.
No worries. Thanks a lot. And thanks for the invitation. It was great. I met Mary a few months back at a conference and just connected well. And I think she's doing some amazing things. In fact, she deserves some congratulations for winning Marketer of the Year in Chicago yesterday or a couple days ago. So that was exciting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was very exciting.
Yeah, a round of applause for sure. So I'm going to talk about conversion optimization and how we're seeing lead gen websites and e-commerce websites as well, but we're talking about primarily lead gen today, how they're dramatically increasing conversion rates from their landing pages and websites. And so I've got one slide just introducing who Wider Funnel is here. Some of you we probably haven't met before, but all we do is conversion optimization, marketing optimization. And our focus is to dramatically lift profits with scientific marketing by testing to find out what actually works. And I always get this question at the end. So just to be clear, all the examples we're showing today are ones that we developed, and we do everything from soup to nuts when developing conversion strategy. We start with a strategy, we do design and copywriting and full service testing, HTML, all the technical stuff and results analysis, all of that is all part of what we do. So we take total control of and responsibility for the results that you're going to see today. And there's lots of more free tips from what you're going to see today, also available at widerfunnel.com/blog. I'd encourage you to join the thousands of readers that are signing up for that one. So first of all, I want to start with what we're seeing in the conversion optimization space, and I'm going to get into some examples test your skills and show some frameworks that we're using. But what we're seeing is that year over year, conversion rate dissatisfaction is growing. More and more companies are understanding that marketing is not just about driving more traffic. They actually have to convert them and capture those people and grab their attention. And that's why this year I'm really excited that conversion optimization has risen to be the #1 priority for digital marketers, tied with content marketing. And that's really exciting that it's overtaken social media this year. Finally people are starting to jump off the bandwagon a little bit and the shiny object and get to what's actually delivering results. But the problem still remains that with all this effort, conversion rate improvement is getting harder. Year over year, 5% more companies are saying they have not been able to improve their conversion rate. So that's a problem, right? They're spending a lot of time and effort doing this, but not getting the results. And the problem is they're doing it wrong. So I'm going to talk to you today about how to get results. And I can't speak for everyone, but the results we're seeing when we start engaging with companies to do a conversion optimization strategy is significant. We're seeing average conversion rate lifts of 23% for e-commerce and 49% for lead gen. Imagine spending the same amount of money driving traffic and get 50% more leads. Those are free leads. That's what we're talking about today, is how to not just increase your marketing budget to get more people through the door, but to do it for free, essentially. So what we're going to talk about is an example as well with Iron Mountain. Now, they came to us just over 3 years ago with 17,000 web pages. And that's not including their landing pages. So they said, we need to improve our conversion rates. We're not getting the results we need. We're not generating as many leads as we need. And we really need to dramatically improve what we're doing. So we started our engagement. We've been working with them for a 3-year conversion optimization engagement and had some pretty amazing results. I'm going to show you an example now. And then I'll show you in detail the frameworks that we're using. This was one of the pages they came to us with, and one of the pages that we prioritized to test. It was for secure data backup, storage, and recovery. And so this is a control page. Now you can take a look at that and think, what would you improve on that page? And there may be some elements you might have opinions about what could be improved. You might think, maybe it's doing a pretty good job. I mean, they've got a form right on the page. They should be generating leads. And so when you think about your business, you've got these very important marketing touch points, your landing pages and websites. And how have you decided, or how do you decide what goes onto those important pages? Right? You're sending a lot of traffic to these pages, and they may be critical to your business. They may be the major blockages between your advertising and your sales. So you've got a situation where a lot of times people are using a traditional method for marketing where their digital agency will come and they'll present examples or present concepts for these pages, for your website and for your landing pages. And how do you decide which of these concepts goes live? A lot of people are using the HIPPO method. You may be familiar with the HIPPO method. If you've been involved in web analytics, that's the highest paid person's opinion, right? A lot of times you'll be sitting around the boardroom and the HIPPO will point at the one they think should go live, and that's the one that goes. A lot of people are also using the black turtleneck method, I call it, where the person in the boardroom with the sunglasses, right, points at the one they like because you're a brand-driven organization. But of course, what we're talking about today is how to make decisions with scientific certainty. And that's using the scientific method where we actually, of course, redirect all of the visitors to a different experience into different buckets and then measure their performance, whether it's phone calls or lead generation or purchases or whatever is the important metric for the business, and then track the conversion rates for each bucket and find out what actually works best. So let's take a look at an example. This is these are 2 pages that we tested, 2 variations against that original page we just looked at. So one, variation A, was a dramatic redesign against the control, right? We've changed a lot of things, changed the imagery, the messaging, rewrote everything. And so that's what we call a variable cluster test, where we're putting a whole bunch of variables into the changes to try and get one of these swing for the fences improvements. And then variation B is what we call an isolation. It's isolating the content against variation A. So you see in variation A, we're talking about, we've got a concise benefit-oriented copy that talks about the benefits of using Iron Mountain, of trusting Iron Mountain. Variation B talks more specifically about the products. There's more content, and it has specific features of the service. So the question is, which one won, right? And we tested it, but I'm going to actually open up a poll so you can vote on which one you think won. So go ahead and vote on whether you think A, the shorter, concise version won, or B, the one with more details about the service. So was it A, the concise benefit-driven variation, or B, the service details? Go ahead and put your vote in there. I see the votes coming in. So A, concise, or B, details. And then we'll take a look at which one won. Okay, I'm going to close this down. Got most of the votes there. And take a look at what you thought. So take a look at this. We have 65% of votes for A, concise, and 35% for product details. All right, so that's a pretty substantial win. Now, of course, you know, you might have to go with the hippo in a typical organization, but let's take a look at what actually won. So when we tested it, we found a statistically significant improvement where variation B actually won, with a 49.9% lift in conversions. They had nearly 50% more leads coming into the Salesforce. And what was cool, and I always love these experiences when our main contact calls us up and says, you know what, I just had the most amazing experience. My sales manager came walking down the hall and said, what the heck have you done with the website, because we can't handle all the calls coming in. Right? That's a good experience. So if you voted for B, give yourself a raise, because you just got 50% more leads coming in. All right, so let's take a look at another example. And this one is actually a consumer example, but what it shows is how even small changes can make a difference. This is for EA Sports. It was a game they were releasing that they were in pre-beta, and so it was the free offer period where they needed to get more free beta signups. They had to hit their free signup targets in order to be able to launch into the monetization phase of their product launch. So we had already optimized the landing page, and this now we needed to focus on the conversion funnel. So going through the form fields. It was a 3-step form, and that's why I'm showing you, because a lot of times, you know, of course, in B2B, in lead gen, there's a form process you have to go through, whether it's a single page or multiple steps in many cases, and small changes can make a big difference. Now I've had to blur out some of the branding on this one for trademark reasons, but this was the control page. So what we did, again, in variation A, is a dramatic redesign. So this was quite a bit different than the control. It says register to play for free, right, including the most powerful word in the English language, free. And then you could log in, and most of the people coming through this conversion funnel actually already had an EA account because they were marketing mainly through to their newsletter base for other game players. They wanted to get the low-hanging fruit first. So this form made sense going into the EA account. Now, in version B, we created an isolation where everything on the form was the same as A, except we added in this steps indicator. Things, you know, you've got 3 steps to sign up and get into the game and start playing. Because there's a question here about whether this improves conversion rate, having these steps indicators. So variation C was now another isolation against variation B, where we had the steps indicators and then changed the orientation of the fields to be horizontal instead of vertically stacked. All right, so some small user experience changes, and you know, there are multiple components to conversion optimization. User experience is one of them. So these can make a difference. Let's take a look at your thoughts here. Test your conversion skills on which one you think won. Was it A, the dramatic redesign against the control, or B, where we added in the progress steps, or C, where we added in the progress steps and had horizontal fields? So A, no steps, B, steps, or C, steps and horizontal fields. Go ahead and vote. And I see the votes coming in, this time a little bit more hesitant perhaps than the first time. That's okay. Go ahead and vote. There's no quiz or personally identifiable information being captured here. So A, no steps, B, progress steps, or C, steps and fields. All right, let's take a look. Let me close this down. Take a look at what your thoughts are. All right, so variation B is the clear winner here again, followed closely by C, and A is trailing badly in the third place with 11% of the votes. Well, this is interesting. So let's take a look at what actually happened. So we test A, B versus C. And although A had 11% of the votes, it actually won. So A was the winner with a 12.8% increase in sign-up conversion rates. So what are we getting at here? What I want to show you, and this is interesting to see that, you know, it's often the case where the majority of smart marketers will vote against the actual winners. And what I want to
Thank you for saying
talk
we're
about here.
smart, by the way. Sorry.
What's that?
I said thank you for saying that we're smart. I just wanted to jump in because I have a question. I've been
Yeah.
seeing certain questions, and if you don't mind, would you say that the test you just showed us with EA, if you repeated that for a completely different client, you would see the same, you could assume to see the same result, or it could be totally different because the audience is different?
Well, that's yeah, exactly. That's a good question. There are some principles that we're finding that go across all audiences, and certainly there are some things that we're finding should be fairly close to best practices. Although I'd never want to solidify something as best practices. But other things that we're finding are very target audience dependent. So usually user experience elements are fairly universal, so we'll apply them across all things. But the progress indicators, we're certainly finding, the progress steps, I should say, we're finding different results based on the context. So if there's many steps, sometimes we're seeing it works well. If the audience may wonder why they need to go through a complex sign up, then maybe it doesn't work as well. Sometimes it doesn't work as well because it's better for them not to know, and they have momentum, and they're willing to go through it. If they don't know that they have 6 steps to go through, it may just be daunting, and they may not want to engage in that. So that's got certainly wins and losses on both sides when we test it. But so in general, what we're finding is that there are no, well, actually, a lot of the best practices that have been solidified as design best practices just don't work as a universal principles. And I got a couple examples here I'll show you as well. So you've heard, I'm sure, of the principle of these secure symbols. If you've got Norton security symbols, McAfee secure symbols, and notwithstanding some of McAfee's bad press recently, this test was run a little while ago, where in an e-commerce store we tested putting the McAfee secure symbol in that persistent call to action checkout area. And a lot of people will say, if you have them, make them as prominent as possible. Put them in your headers, put them in your footers, put them by your calls to action, and assure people that you're a trustworthy site. But in this case, it actually reduced sales. And so that's something you definitely want to test. And if you're just putting these on your lead gen forms as well, in particular, we see another example where this guy is going overboard on adding trust, and a lot of people are doing that. They're putting Better Business Bureau and the trust symbols and the VeriSign all over the place. But does this make you want to shop here? Does it really create trust? And sometimes I like to look at examples from bricks and mortar, from offline sales, because they've been perfecting the art of sales and lead gen for a long time. And you can talk to your sales folks and often get a lot of insights into what works with your prospects. But if you look at this example, you've got plush carpeting, you've got warm lighting, great merchandising, products displayed clearly, and you can almost smell the leather, wafting out and enticing you in here. So the idea is, would you rather shop here or in a high security environment, right? And so a lot of times what marketers are forgetting is that these prospects have, how to think from the prospect's perspective. Those security symbols, for example, may actually be creating anxiety, especially if they're overemphasized it may give them an uneasiness about why are you putting so much emphasis on this security? Like, it's not a question that I'm asking right now. So think about answering the questions when people are asking them. Second example I have here is from SAP. You go to the SAP website, and the prospect may be thinking about a BI solution or something that a service that they need for their business. And so they arrive on the site, and the first thing they have to do is try and understand how this website is built, right? Because every website's different. So you've got to think, okay, if I'm trying to find a reporting solution, where would I find that? Maybe it's in the nav up there, but the headline's talking about this Gartner Magic Quadrant. I don't really know what that means, but is that related to the reporting? Maybe I need to read that first. But just as the prospect is about to download the report and say, yeah, that might be interesting, what happens? The whole website changes from their perspective, right? And it rotates out, and they see a different message. The software that reinvented business, reinvented. Well, now, hang on, I kind of was interested in that report, but should I be looking at this instead? And then just as they're about to get into that, or try and find their way back to the other one, it changes again, and it changes again. And this is something that is a very common element on many websites, B2B and B2C. It's a common design practice. But what we found through testing is that in most cases it underperforms in terms of conversions. And in fact, these rotating carousels, rotating offers, tend to hurt conversion rates. But it's become sort of this standard element that art directors are using. It looks great, and it solves an art director's problem because they run out of space, and now they have a new space to work with, right? So the whole punchline, of course, is that you should test that. And it's not a new idea, right? This is not a new concept that we need to test. We've known for many years, and as a species, that all of our advancements in technology, in infant mortality, and lifespan, and quality of life has come from science. And yet, marketers are this unique subset of humanity that believes that their gut feeling and their intuition is more powerful than testing, or more powerful than getting actual data and using science. But science is available to all of us. So, this may not be a new idea, but we're still just entering the phase where marketers are understanding that they need to be testing their ideas and testing their concepts to find out what actually happens. But it's not just testing alone that gets the best results. How you test is important. And so I'm going to show you how this number works, 200%. That's what a structured testing process is worth. Okay, so just testing alone, just using the spaghetti method of throwing anything against the wall and seeing what sticks is not the best way to get results. eConsultancy did a study to show this, or that showed this, I should say. And when they looked at organizations that were doing conversion optimization, what they found is that companies that had a structured approach to improving their conversion rates were twice as likely to also report large increases in sales. So developing a structured process for your conversion program is so important that it will give you twice the likelihood of reporting large increases in sales and leads from your program. So of course, we've developed over the years the process that we use at Wider Funnel for how to get results. And I don't have time today to get into all the details of this, but as an overarching view, it starts with a first phase where we've got developing a strategy for how to prioritize and focus effort, and then the second phase of ongoing iterative testing. So a lot of people, when they get into conversion optimization, just go straight to testing, and that's where they miss out on a lot of the gold, because in the first phase, it's very important to get into the shoes of the prospect, to really understand their perspective and how they're using the website through the data and user testing and things you would gather from that. And then, almost as importantly, prioritizing the opportunities so that they're spent, your effort is spent in the right place. So I'm going to show you a couple frameworks that we use to do that. One is to develop the strategy, and the second is develop ideas for testing. And I'm going to show you a slide here so that you understand that regardless of if you're in B2B, if you're targeting, generating leads for a business or consumer leads, or perhaps you've got an e-commerce component or even affiliate. These frameworks work across industries. And what we're finding is more commonalities across industries than differences, in fact. And a lot of times the principles that we're finding testing in e-commerce, we're actually able to apply to similar mental scenarios in B2B and vice versa. So what's more important is to think about the mind frame of that prospect and where they're at in their decision cycle. Okay, so as I said, strategic conversion optimization, this structured process comes down to a two-phased approach. Okay, so we're talking about creating a conversion plan and then continuous iterative testing. But you might still be asking, this sounds complicated, right? We've got to go through all of this process. Why do we need a plan? Well, when you think about back to the Iron Mountain situation, and perhaps you're in a similar situation. They had 17,000 pages, right? Plus, they had all kinds of internal goals. They had many different business units. And if we had just started testing on what may have seemed like the most important page, maybe starting on the home page or starting on a high traffic landing page, it may have actually been the wrong area to start. And we could have spent the first year or two testing the lower priority areas and not getting the real insights. But by developing a strategy, we can optimize the optimization process. What's important to understand is there are three generally different phases in a customer journey through your website. There's the persuasional end, which is the landing pages, right? This is where people enter your site, and you need to convince them within half a second that you're matching what they're looking for, that you've got what they need. And then they go into the informational phase, where they're actually going throughout your website and trying to find out enough information, as Mary alluded to earlier, so that they understand whether you've got the right features set that's interesting to them, and whether they should go through to the third component, which is the transactional end, is actually converting, filling out that lead form, requesting a quote, requesting a demo, that real macro conversion where you're trying to get in touch with sales. But what we're seeing is that a lot of people are still focused in their optimization just on landing pages. And they're leaving a lot of money on the table by not looking at the rest of the components of the buyer journey, right? They're going through these informational interior pages, and they can be just as important. And so often we're testing site-wide persistent call to action blocks, or the overall template and the value proposition is presented throughout the elements site-wide. And so it's very important there in this strategy phase to prioritize where to test first, and where can we generate the most insights that can impact the rest of the marketing strategy and the rest of the customer touch points. So here's a framework I'm going to show you that we use to do just that. It's called the PI framework. And you'll get the slides later, so you don't have to take all these notes down, but it's important to understand, essentially at the high level, it's based on the potential, importance, and ease of all the pages that you have available and all the templates. So what we do is we look at the potential, which is the potential for improvement in each of the landing pages and websites and templates. Right? Looking at voice of customer data and heuristics and web analytics data, which ones essentially are the worst pages, which ones are your crappiest pages, and how can we improve them? The second is the importance. Which pages have the highest traffic volume and the highest costs to your marketing? Right? So those are the important pages and the ones that generate a lot of revenue. And the third component is the ease of implementation. That includes technical and what I call political ease, right? And that's often why we're avoiding the home page right off the bat, for example. Sometimes, it's got the hippo really invested in that design of the home page. Even though it might be highly important and high potential for improvement, the ease may just kill it. So we actually rank all of the pages by potential importance and ease and come up with a PI ranking. And you can do something like this as well, where you end up with a chart. And down the left, we've got all of the test target opportunities, and they're all ranked by potential importance and ease based on the data we're collecting. And just taking an average, we end up with a ranking of all of the test and optimization opportunities. So you really know with pinpoint accuracy where you can focus your effort to get the best results, and you don't have to feel overwhelmed by trying to eat the whole website at once on the first day. so that's now when you've got a chart like this, it becomes a discussion point that you can go and use within your team to say, okay, does this make sense, right? Does this really the top priority? And then maybe shuffle around the pie rankings to look relatively between all the pages and make sure they make sense. All right, so I know I'm going through a lot of this quickly, but I'm gonna power right through in the last 2 minutes and talk about then once you've got this prioritization, how do you test the right things, and how do you run these tests? So part of the process is you've developed the strategic framework, and then going into the iterative testing phase. That's phase 2. There's a 7-step testing cycle that we use. Now I'll run you through it quickly and then show you the most important component of it. So the first component is the lift analysis, and that's what I'm going to show you in just a moment. That's how we identify the problem areas on each page and look at the 6 conversion factors that are stopping people from converting on your landing pages and your website. And then we take these lift points and convert them into hypotheses. Those are the questions that we're going to ask of the prospects and to come up with the insights. And then the test design document, which we call the funnel experiment map. And that encapsulates all of the ideas in this test, the goals and the technical structure and the wireframes and the variations, to make sure everyone agrees on the test strategy. And it's very important to document this so that we don't sort of reinvent the goals after the test results are in, right? And sort of mold them to make things look good. And then, of course, going through the execution of graphic design and copy and HTML and experimental launch is very important that those are done properly with adequate QA and agility. And then probably one of the most important steps is the step 7, the results analysis, is looking at the comparative relative difference between all of the variations and coming out with the insights and potential future hypotheses and more questions that you can continue to test. And that's how we end up coming out with an ongoing, never-ending iterative series of tests, because there's always new questions that come out of the results analysis if we analyze it properly. Okay, so I want to focus now on the lift analysis as the most important step for generating great ideas to test. This is how we know what to test. We categorize all of the potential problems and look from the perspective of the prospect at the 6 conversion factors. And the first one is the value proposition. And value proposition has a lot of definitions, and you probably have your own definition of what you believe it to be, and I've got mine as well. I like to think of it as an equation that goes on in the prospect's mind between 2 sides, right? There's the perceived costs of taking action and the perceived benefits of taking action, what they're going to get out of this. So they may be sitting on your landing page thinking about the cost. Okay, I'm going to have a salesperson bugging me. I'm going to have some obligation. I'm going to have a cost of time to spend with a salesperson. I'm going to cost of privacy. I'm going to be giving up a bunch of information. Who knows what kind of spam I'm going to get, right? And there's this credibility cost. So the perceived credibility is very important there as well. And then there's the perceived benefits. Well, they may have the right solution for me. They may actually be able to solve my problem. They may be able to generate some great revenue for me and get my bonus that I'm looking for, right? So this battle is going on in every step they take in the process. And if your value proposition is strong, if that's a positive equation, they'll have motivation to take action. And then all the other factors support or detract from that value proposition, right? So I'll quickly go through those and then show you how it works. So the relevance of the presentation is the relevance of that page that they're looking at to the source media, or where they immediately came from, right? Whether that's it's from their content marketing, email marketing, your paid search, SEO, whatever it is that page that they're looking at immediately paying off where they came from? And then the next factor is the clarity, right? There's the clarity of the eye flow and the clarity of the imagery and the copywriting and the call to action. All of those can be tested to improve how they're being communicated. Then there's anxiety, we talked about earlier with those security symbols, and of course that relates to what Mary was talking about earlier as well, with how many form fields you're asking, right? You've got a maximum there before you start overwhelming anxiety, and everyone has a breaking point for this anxiety of how much they're willing to give you. And then there's distraction or a lack of focus. And marketers are notorious for trying to put everything on their landing pages and everything on their sales pages because they're afraid of leaving something out. But often that's causing paralysis in their prospects because they have too much information to try and process and they're overwhelmed. And then urgency is why should I act now, right? Give them an offer, give them a reason, and test which ones actually work best. Okay, so we actually look at these 6 conversion factors every time we analyze a page, and I'm going to show you an example for Iron Mountain so you may be able to identify some of the similar factors that you're seeing on your pages. So this was another page they came to us with that we prioritized in the first few months of our engagement. It was for data protection and recovery. And again, you could think of, perhaps there are some factors you might want to improve on this page. And I'm going to walk through some of the things that we prioritized and see if you see some similar examples on your website. So first of all, there are multiple products mentioned without a lot of detail, right? And we saw earlier on that first test, in this situation, in this target audience, more detail about the features was actually helpful, and it wasn't being paid off here. The headline doesn't say backup, even though that was where a lot of their incoming keywords were mentioning. The image doesn't directly reinforce a backup message, right? There's a large header graphic. A lot of real estate here is used, pushing the content down below the fold, the important content on the form. The contact us on the form really doesn't pay off a benefit, right? What am I going to get out of contacting you? There's this layout issue here with alignment, and I often get questions about that. I pinpoint some of these design issues, and people don't really at first believe that it causes that it's a real problem. But you know what we're finding is elements on the page, over-designed elements or things that cause visual confusion or visual complexity, reduce the amount of bandwidth that your prospects have for understanding your value proposition. Because people are like old 386 computers, right? You throw too much code at them, too many things, and they run out of speed. They can't think about all of the components when they're trying to evaluate and make sense of any mismatch. And so these little elements can actually add up to make a big difference, we're finding. The call to action is not reinforced about, right? It's only below the fold. The privacy policy message is creating anxiety there. And we find that in a lot of B2B situations. There's no offer associated with the form field, right? The submit button, I mean, nobody wants to submit. There's no credibility indicators on the page. So, this and many more are some of the factors that we'll identify on a page like this. But now we've got a list of problems, right? So what do? We need to convert these into hypotheses, into things that can be tested. And that's where this step comes in, where we create the hypotheses. We take the weaknesses. So a weakness could be something like the headline doesn't say backup, and we could flip that into a strength and say changing the headline to include the word backup will lift conversion rates. And now that's a hypothesis that can be tested. We could isolate that if we thought that was important to understand. And we'll go through the whole list and create all of these hypotheses. We'll end up with dozens of hypotheses. And then the art of the strategist comes in, where you need to really prioritize which ones to isolate and which ones to just cluster together. And there's no real algorithm or tried and true method for doing that, other than the strategist's understanding of the marketing approach and the insights we're going to get out of that. We spend a lot of time on this step, really winnowing down the isolations. So let's take a look at some of the examples, some of the variations that were tested against that original control. So variation A, this one we call Lightbox Form, it was quite a dramatic design change against the control. Now, the content was very similar. We had made some changes and rewritten some of the content to make it more compelling, and added in some trust symbols. And in this case, we'd also turned this form into a lightbox, where if you clicked on that button, it opened up a modal lightbox pop-up with the form embedded that they would fill out to contact sales. And of course, there was a benefit attached to it, right? Requesting a free, no obligation quote. And then variation B, what we wanted to isolate here was embedding the form versus having a lightbox form. So in this case, the messaging was all identical to A, but we embedded the form right there. And then variation C was testing an offer. So this was an isolation against A, where we had a white paper download instead of a request to quote. And of course, you can also test offers, and that really tests the value proposition. What is going to have a bigger value proposition for those prospects sitting on that page? All right, so again, let's test your skills. Which one won? So let's open up one more poll here and vote on which one you think won. Was it the Lightbox form, was it the embedded form, or was it the white paper download? So go ahead and vote on which one you think won. Lightbox A, embedded B, or white paper download C? Which one had the best lead gen conversion rate? Okay, you see the votes coming in, and I'm going to give you one more second. Go ahead and vote. A for Lightbox, B for embedded, or C for download white paper offer. Okay, let's close the poll and look at the results. We have some experienced B2B marketers in here that are really confident in their white paper download offers. Okay, so now here's the question that could hinge your next promotion on. This winner produced a 404% conversion rate lift. Okay, so the question is, did you make the right decision? Did you vote on the right one? Let's take a look at the results. So if you voted for C, unfortunately, it did not win. Variation B actually won. So it turned out that requesting a quote with the embedded form was dramatically better than any of the other variations, and it produced a 400%. That's 4 times the leads of the control page. And now they have also something just as important, which is a marketing insight. They know that the people that are arriving on these pages are actually looking to go straight to the quote. And perhaps for the target audience they're reaching here, that white paper download is too early stage in the decision cycle, and they don't need to go there. They can get them right into the quote, get them right to sales, and actually close them faster. Okay, so the last component that we find in enterprise B2B companies like Iron Mountain is, how do we encapsulate these learnings and disperse them throughout the organization? And what we found is that a lot of times what we're able to do with them is take the winning pages and spread the knowledge throughout the organization. Do internal webinars. We A/B test the winners against other landing pages for different business units. And what we've built is an insight playbook where we've got a list of the test results, and we're developing what we believe is the world's largest database of test results specific to industries and to overall principles and for specific clients. And we're able to share test results so they can use these learnings as a playbook to brief other agencies, right? So that's an important component, making sure that when you've got test results that you market them throughout the company. And the last principle here is, we all, I don't know, last year everyone was trying to be a guru. Apparently this year they're all called ninjas. So, your aspiration should be a conversion champion or conversion ninja, but the only way to get there is more tests running. Run more tests and find out what actually works in your particular environment. That'll give you the best results long term. So the last question I'll ask for you, it's not a poll, something to ask for yourself. What are you waiting for? Because apparently every marketing presentation needs a cat. And then I'll also mention actually that the book came out that we put together recently, and it's got a lot more insights. And you can actually download a free chapter at youshouldtestthat.com. So you should take advantage of that. And it's a chapter about what is conversion optimization. There's a lot of good insights there. And I'll also mention that we do have an opening right now for a new company to start in the conversion optimization program. So if you're interested in that, I'll pass that out to find out if you qualify to work with Wider Funnel. You can tell us the URL of your website and send it to hello@widerfunnel.com with your traffic volume, and we can schedule a qualification interview. So Mary, I don't know if we probably got a couple minutes for a question or two.
Yeah, and I just want to tell you that I loved everything. That was so great because I think that we're I think in marketing we're always in a rush, and we know that this does take method to really understand. And it's I think one of the quick questions I had was, when you talk about the repository of this all this incredible learning that you've gathered, who has access to that? Like, how could one have access? Is it only your clients? Is it other agencies? How do you make that available, if at all?
Well, we aren't able to share the results database yet publicly.
Hmm.
So our strategists are using that to generate their ideas, but then, of course, with their clients, we're releasing the results of their particular tests and other generic tests that we can, apply to their situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to be able to offer that in the future. We're looking at ways of how we could possibly do that on a subscription basis, but right now it's really a tool that our strategists are using, and then for our clients, we're, you know, doing their own customized playbook for their industry.
Right. And then what about you walked through this incredible process with Iron Mountain. How many pages or how many visits do you need to a particular page in order to come up with a statistically reliable answer?
Hmm. Yeah, and that's really depends on a couple factors. One is um, the conversion rate of the control, the starting point, the conversion rate, as it approaches 50%, uh, uh, tests complete more quickly. And then the second factor is the difference in conversion rate between the variations. So
Mm-hmm.
often, if there's a dramatic improvement, so if the page is really bad as a starting point, then you'll need less traffic to get a statistically significant winner. So there isn't actually a benchmark number, but as a rule of thumb, we're finding that it's roughly between 200 to 500 conversions per variation to get statistical significance.
Okay. 200 to 500 conversions. All right. So
Yeah,
in an A/B test, you'd need 400 to 1,000, for example.
right.
Okay. And so
That's generally
yeah,
okay.
when you have websites that have, because I think that some of the B2B sites have lower traffic than, say, certainly
Mhm.
consumer sites. Do you find that sometimes these tests just take 3 months before you really get an answer?
Well, yeah, and that's with often with B2B, you know, versus a consumer site, the leads are much more valuable. So it still makes sense to run tests even with lower traffic at times and
Hmm.
just leave them running for longer. There's no downside to having a test in market, right? You're learning something as you go, and getting a bunch of tests out there that may take a few months to complete will still give you data in the end, and it's better than just going on gut feeling.
Wow. All right. Well, I have probably 5,000 more questions I would love to ask you, but I know that we're at the hour and just a little past, so I'm going to call it. But Chris, I'm going to ask if I can shoot you some questions and maybe publish it as a web page and let everybody take a look at some of these things. So if you do have questions, maybe email them to me. You can email hello@reachforce.com or whatever email sent you your confirmation information, and we'll try to get something up in a couple of weeks if you have time.
That sounds great. Yeah, be
Awesome.
happy to.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank Chris for being smart and such a great scientist around this. And I hope we get to do it again and go in more depth, more testing. And that's it for today. Thanks so much, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Mary.
All right. Bye bye.
Thanks.